Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our great presentation regarding certification with the City of Chicago for minority business enterprises and women business enterprises. Today's speaker is Victoria Wright. She is a recently retired senior certification analyst with the City of Chicago. She brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and hands-on expertise in all things certification with the City of Chicago. So I'm really excited to have her here today. I'm really looking forward to learning more about certification with the City of Chicago. Victoria, thank you for joining us today. Take it away.
Thank you. Actually, Irma, can you tell me how many people are
on? We have, we have two people. It's Shirley Hogsett, and I can't identify call-in user number 2.
Okay, so hopefully we'll get more people. And I welcome questions at the end. And I always say, if it's something too personal of a question, then I will give out my information so that you can talk to me individually. Sometimes people don't want to talk about their personal business on this type of setting, but I will take as many questions that are needed at the end. So as Irma talked about, COVID has not ended the contracting opportunities with the City of Chicago or any of the other city agencies that you all know about. Hold on. Okay. So everybody is still purchasing, and it's still opportunities for you to do business with the City of Chicago. So I don't know if everybody here is already certified with CMSDC, but the City of Chicago does not accept the certification from CMSDC. They only accept the City of Chicago and Cook County if you actually want to do business with the City of Chicago. So the benefits of certification is once you're certified, your firm is listed in a directory, which is accessible to the general public and all prime contractors. So why is that important? Once you get your approval letter, they do list your name of your company and the NAICS codes that you have been approved for in a database. So if there's a contract that's coming up and you're trying to be a sub, prime contractors can find you in that database. And the City of Chicago will send people to that database. They don't let people say, oh, I can't find anyone. They make sure that people know about that database, and they ask people to go to that database when it's time to find a subcontractor. The private sector also uses the City of Chicago certification approval for their diversity programs. So there are other private entities like hospitals who will accept the City of Chicago's certification approval letter. You can use your MBE and WBE certification in your marketing and your advertising materials. And I highly recommend that anything that you're using for advertising and marketing, you should put that you are either MBE and or WBE certified. People always ask, is there some type of symbol? There is not. There's no symbol for certification. So we tell people you could just either write it out that you're MBE, WBE certified, or make up I hate to say it, make up your own symbol for MBE, WBE certification, but the city doesn't have one. Once you get your letter, you are able to put on your business cards or your capability statements that you are certified with the City of Chicago and any other agency that you might be certified with. So another benefit of being certified is the City of Chicago has a program called Target Market. The program provides exclusive bidding to certified minority and women-owned businesses only. This allows minority business to take 100% of the contract because there are no subcontractor goals associated with the project. So why is this important? If there's a target market, they're only allowing small businesses who are certified with the City of Chicago to bid on that contract. So one that I know of, maybe in the last year or two, was for IT. And so they were looking for IT companies certified IT companies who are certified with either the city or the county who could bid on some work as a target market. So they weren't letting any of the primes bid on it. So that gives you an upper hand, but you have to have the city or the county certification before you could bid on a target market. Who qualifies for the program? African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, Asian Indians, women. We also we have the city of Chicago has a VBE program. They have a Persons with Disabilities program, which is BEPD, and other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantages. So a very good example of this is we had a woman who was WBE certified, but she was from Iran. And she wanted the MBE as well as the WBE. And so she had to go before the Affirmative Action Board is a real board. And she had to go before those people and prove why she should be considered a minority. So she had to prove that she had economic and social disadvantages throughout her life, which would mean like maybe she didn't get a loan because she felt like she was being discriminated against. Maybe she didn't get in a college that she applied for, but she went through the entire process and she did get the MBE. So because we don't include Iranians in that list that's there, she had to go to the Affirmative Action Board and she actually did win that. So what are the requirements? You must be a local business, with your principal place of business must be in one of the following counties: Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, or Will. And when I say the principal place of business, we consider this your home base has to be in one of these 6 counties. So we've more recently, the city has been saying that people might have an office in more than one location. So when there is more than one location, they're looking for where are your employees. So most of the time we want the majority of your employees has to be in one of these 6 counties. So if you do have another office, that's okay, but the majority of your staff has to be in one of these 6 counties. Another thing that has just come up this year is a lot of people are working from home. So they are taking that into consideration. And that is something that's because the city of Chicago is about to make some changes with their rules and regs, but they are taking into account that people are working from home. So I don't think they've come to a conclusion yet about how they're going to handle that, but because of COVID, we do know that a lot of people now are working from home. So on the DBE, ACDBE side, you can work anywhere in Illinois. And once you have a DBE or ACDBE in your home state, you can apply in other states as well. So if you're in Illinois and you're a restaurant, but you want to get ACDBE in Indiana, you have to have the Illinois DBE or ACDBE before you can go to Indiana. And that's another class. I think that's next week's class. We'll talk specifically about DBE and ACDBE. They have let me explain. The DBE and ACDBE is a federal program where the MWBBE and BEPD are local programs. So the city of Chicago makes up the rules and regs for MBE, WBE, VBE, and BEPD. But the federal government makes the rules for DBE and ACDBE. So if you want more information about the federal program, then you should register for next week's class. The company must be 51% owned, controlled, and managed by a minority woman, veteran, and or a person with a disability. For DBE and ACDBE, you have to be socially or economically disadvantaged individuals. And we do consider women and minorities as socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. So one thing about this is the word controlled. So you have to remember, if you're the 51% owner and you have a non-minority as the 49% owner, you must know that business better than and control the business more than the 49% owner. Because on paper, if you were just saying, yes, I'm the 51% owner, this other person is the 49% owner, and you're an IT company, but you, the 51% owner, does not know IT, that doesn't work for the program. If you're the 51% owner, we expect you to be able to control and manage that business, even if the 49% owner wasn't there. So it's a big check of the resume and past experience to make sure that the 51% owner can control that business. So for MBE, WBE, BBE, and BEPD, gross receipts must not exceed 41.0 million, averaged over 3 years for non-construction companies, and averaged over 5 years for construction companies. And the construction companies, we follow, the city of Chicago follows the SBA size standard. So that's a whole different list that is based on NAICS codes if you're in a construction company. So you would have to look up which NAICS code you want and make sure if it's either construction or non-construction, so that you know where your gross receipts have to be when you decide to apply for certification. Construction firms also must submit a personal net worth statement. The personal net worth statement cannot exceed 2.3 million in a construction company. And that's another thing that might change soon with new rules and regs for the construction program for the city of Chicago. And I always stress before you even start this process is that you should read the rules and regs and keep on top of have the rules and regs changed. I am expecting new rules and regs to come out soon, and I can't say how soon, but before you even start the process, you should read the rules and regs. The PNW for construction companies excludes the value of your primary residency and the value of your company. So one thing I want to say about the PNW, if you are a construction company, and you should know that on the DBE and ACDBE side, everyone must do a PNW. Everyone has to do a PNW on the federal program. But the home that you live in, they don't need the value of the home that you live in. So, but if you have rental property, then they're looking for that rental property in your tax returns to see what you're making off of that property. The value of your company. A lot of times people want to say, hey, my company is worth $2 million. That is not needed in a PNW for the construction program or for the DBE, ACDBE program. We're not looking for the value of your company. They're not looking for the value of a company or the value of your home. Business formations that qualify. Actually, almost all business formations qualify. Sole proprietor, corporations, limited partnerships, and LLCs. So on this slide, I have put down what it is we're looking for if you say you're a corporation or a limited partnership or an LLC. So a lot of times people will form their business but not know all the documents that they should have to prove that they are this formation. So for a corporation and for almost all of these business formations, you have to be in good standing with the state of Illinois. So you should have a state of Illinois license and it should be in good standing. What you will find that you have to keep that up every year. You have to pay a fee to keep your state license in good standing. And so when they do an audit, they're going to look to make sure that that is in good standing. You should have articles of incorporation you should have bylaws. Both of these things, if you don't know how to do them, you can Google it to find out how to do it. Um, you should have copies of your stock certificates. You can get stock certificates, and basically all you're doing is writing on the stock certificate that you own 51 and who owns 49. The name should be on the stock certificates. You can buy stock certificates at not Office Depot, or you can print them off the internet, but you should have stock certificates to show. Meeting minutes. People always get confused about meeting minutes, or they don't have meeting minutes, but a meeting can be just you. It could be you sitting down, making plans for the next 6 months or the next year. Most people say that they do meeting minutes annually, but if you want to do them every 6 months, that's okay as well. And it's just you taking notes of what you want to do for your business, how you want to go forward with your business. If anything's going to change in the business, all of that should be in meeting minutes, and that is what is required for a corporation. For limited, and I'm going to go to LLC. So you should have an operating agreement with an LLC, and you should have articles of organization for an LLC. Same thing, you can Google it to find out what exactly it is. But an operating agreement, if it's two people, is important because it's going to tell what each person is responsible for. It'll talk about the percentage of ownership in an operating agreement. And trust me, they do read the documents. So if it's something in the document that shows that a 20% owner is doing more work than the 51% owner, they will pick up on it in the operating agreement. So a limited partnership and sole proprietors, you should have an assumed name certificate or a certificate of limited partnership. So those things also you can Google to find out how to do that, or where you should go to get an assumed name certificate. So those are all the things that are looked for in the application. A supplier, a distributor, or a broker. If you are any of these things, first of all, the city of Chicago does not certify brokers. A broker does not handle any material, and the city of Chicago does not consider, I hate to say it, as needed, because it's basically somebody buying something from another company, and that company ships it directly to the client. And so the broker in the middle is not a commercially useful function, because all they're doing is sending one thing. They don't have and I guess I should just explain what a supplier and a distributor is. A supplier must own, operate, and maintain a store, a warehouse, or other establishment in which materials, supplies, or equipment are kept in stock and sold or leased to the public. So if you sell masks, you should have some place where you have masks in a supply, and you ship your mask directly to a client. You should be able to put your hands on materials at any time to ship out to a client. Distributors have a direct relationship with the manufacturer to distribute its goods and products within a specific territory or region. Their products are not sold to the general public. So I love to use the example of selling Avon. So people who sell Avon are considered distributors. So if I sold Avon, I have an agreement with Avon that I'm going to sell Avon products in a certain area. You buy the Avon from me, I'm buying it from Avon, they ship it to me, and then I get it to the client. So I'm a distributor for Avon, but one thing that's going to be asked for if in your certification application is, where's your distributor's agreement? So if you're a distributor, you should have an agreement with whoever you're buying your supplies from, whoever the manufacturer is, should have an agreement with you to say, Victoria Wright is selling Avon on the north side of Chicago or whatever area, and they are signed up with us to sell Avon. So those are the things, you're a supplier or a distributor, that you should remember. And that the city of Chicago does not certify brokers. So the online application, you should know that the online application is at www.chicago.mwdbe.com. The city of Chicago no longer takes any hard copy applications. They used to a very long time ago, but now everything is done electronically. And that is to protect the city and to protect your documents. So the website that you apply on is a secured site. You upload your documents. It's a good thing. Documents are not sitting around on anyone's desk. You would rather have everything online so that your information is secure. So the city of Chicago does charge a non-refundable $250 fee for MBE, WBE, and VBE. BEPD, which is for disabled, is a free application. But M, W, and VBE do pay $250, and it is non-refundable whether you are approved or denied. After you submit, you will receive an email invoice. The invoice will come to you in the email that you submitted in your application. So I can't stress enough that you should make sure that that email address, phone number is correct in your application so that you receive all questions, any type of responses from the city of Chicago, so that you make sure your email is correct. You can pay online or at a city of Chicago payment center. So once you get that invoice, on the back of the invoice or page 2 of the invoice, it's going to tell you how to pay the $250. Do not send the office $250 check. Do not send cash. Everything should be done either online or at a city of Chicago payment center. Your application will not be reviewed until the application fee is paid. So I know people a lot of times would hit send on June 1st and think that the city of Chicago has started the audit. They have not. If you don't pay the $250, nobody is looking at your application. If you don't pay the $250, I think after a month, they will return the application to you. And if you don't pay the $250, there's no audit at all. The contact information. You should make sure your address, your phone number, and your email address are correct in the application, because they do contact you. And the first contact is that invoice. Please make sure you have selected which certification you are requesting. You do not want the city to have to guess, do they want MBE? Do they want WBE? That should be, or VBE. You should tell what certification you're requesting. If you are a woman and a minority, you should select both. It costs $250 to do both. And if you're a woman, a minority, and a veteran, you should do all three at the same time, and it still costs $250. So definitely don't let them decide which certification you want. You should select all of that when you start the application. Documents. What information is needed? What do you have to upload? And Irma and I did talk about this. She's going to send out a document checklist. What I'm going to go over is what is needed from everyone. And if you get the document checklist, if something doesn't pertain to you, you must tell the city why it doesn't pertain to you. So don't just not submit it. But in that section, if it doesn't pertain to you, you should type something out that just says, this doesn't pertain to my company. You might get a question about it, but if it doesn't pertain to you, you have to let them know why it doesn't pertain to you. So ownership information. Who is, I think I had a file a long time ago where it was a 30, 30% information of ownership submitted. So that only equals 90. So the question comes, who owns the other 10? And there was a 10% owner, but they didn't want to list who that 10% owner was. You have to list all the owners. If they only own 5%, you have to list who that is. You can't just leave it dangling of who owns the rest of your company. All of that has to be submitted. Facility information. Do you have an office? It is okay to have a home office, but if you have a home office, we're going to ask for your mortgage statement. If you have an actual office outside your home, then you should be able to submit a lease. If you are using an office, and I use this as if you're a young person, but you're using your parents' home, they would have to write something saying that they are allowing you to use their home for your office. They may or may not ask for the mortgage statement, but if it's not your mortgage statement, more than likely they're just going to ask for whoever owns the house to write something to say that you are allowed to use their home as an office. Employee information. If you don't have any employees, that's okay. Just say I don't have any employees, or I'm the only employee. You just have to give that information. Now, if there are employees, you would have to submit more information about the employees, and I'll go over that in a minute. So that would be financial information that goes back to tax returns, P&Ws if it's required. If you have employees, they're going to want 1099s or W-2s for the employees to show that you are paying these people. You might have to submit the resumes of the employees, especially if they play major roles in your company. It's always good to submit resumes for your employees, because if you have employees, it's good to say, hey, this other person handles something else. I handle the majority of it, but this person handles this as well. Licenses. It's very important to have all your licenses before you submit the application. If you don't have a City of Chicago business license, that could be a problem. But if you are a construction company, as long as you have a GC license, you don't always have to have a City of Chicago business license. That gets a little hazy. It just depends on if your business is governed by someone else who you have to have a license by. Like if you're an architect, an accountant who has to have a license to do what you do, they will accept that license. If you are a masonry or architect, you should have an architecture's license. That's important. You should have the license that you need to perform in the field that you want your next codes. So the documents needed, as we talked about already, is resumes. You must have your driver's license and a birth certificate or passport. You have to have both, a driver's license or a state ID, and then you must also submit a birth certificate or a passport. Proof of equity contribution. Proof of equity contribution means, how did you start your business? How much money did you put into your business to start the company? The document that I used to ask for most was your first bank statement. So if you are ABC Roofing, you should have a bank account for ABC Roofing. How much money did you put in that bank account when you started the bank account? If it's $20, that first bank statement is your equity contribution. Sometimes people, and we do look for a business bank account, because we expect a business to have a business bank account. Your money should not be mixed for your business compared to your personal bank account. So that's why I would always ask for the first bank statement for the business. Bank signatory card. So when you open that bank account, they asked who has permission to take money out of that account or write checks. So that is something that has to come directly from the bank. You cannot write on a piece of paper that you are the only one who can write checks, or you are the only one who can take money out that account. It has to come directly from the bank. and they will give that to you. And usually if they don't give out the bank signatory card, they will write a letter saying who are the signatures on the account, and it should be signed by somebody from the bank. You should have an org chart. If it's only you in the business, that's the only name that should be on the org chart, but they will ask for an org chart. Your equipment list. If you are a construction company, that equipment list should be long. What do you do? Well, how do you do construction without equipment? You should have equipment. If you're an accountant, then your only equipment might be your desk and your computer. And that's all you have to tell us, is that your only equipment is your desk and your computer, and that's fine. So going back to financial documents that they're looking for, the city looks for 3 years of federal and individual tax returns that are signed. And so people get caught up with the signed, because nowadays most people submit their tax returns online, but you would have to take a copy of your tax return, sign it, and then scan it, because they want to see the signature on those federal and individual tax returns. For construction companies, you have to submit 5 years of federal and individual tax returns signed. That might be changing soon. It might be more than 5 years soon. So, and the reason they're doing that is because that will take your gross receipts down as a construction company if they divide by a higher number than 5. So that is something that's coming soon. I don't think it's been documented yet in the rules and regs. W-2s and 1099s for the owner and employees, we just discussed that. So they are looking for W-2s and 1099s for the owner and for the employees. And of course, the personal net worth statement for construction company owners. The audit process. The process can take approximately 90 days from the day the office receives all of the required documents. So the count does not start when you hit send. It is more likely that you will receive an email from your certification officer requesting more documents. So if you submitted everything, you thought you submitted everything, if something is not clear, you will get an email, which will be called a request for information, from the cert officer asking for more documents. Once they get all of the documents and they can do a clear audit, then your 90 days start. So going back to making sure you check your email. If you have more than one email address, that's fine, but make sure you're checking the email that you sent in this application, because the RFI will come through the email and say, hey, you have a question in your application. Please review the question and answer as soon as possible. Documents are thoroughly reviewed. Don't submit something thinking that they're not going to catch it, because that's why the process takes 90 days, because every officer has to read through all of the documents that you send. You may receive a site visit. Suppliers and distributors and all construction companies will receive a site visit. But if there is anything in the application that raises a red flag, a cert officer can request a site visit. So you could say you're a restaurant, but there's an issue with your food sanitation license, and then the officer could decide, I think I'm going to do a site visit. So the certification officer doesn't do the site visit personally. They have a field analyst that does the site visit, and they come out to see the business. During COVID, a lot of the site visits were done online, like we're doing for this class. They would have you do a Zoom call, and they would want you to be in the place of business so that they can see the location. They want you to take pictures. but all of that is included in a site visit. You must respond to all requests for information emails. You will be given 30 days to respond, usually 15 days at a time. So if you get an RFI, they're going to tell you in the RFI, you have 15 days to respond. You have 10 days to respond. You have 5 days to respond. It's going to equal up to 30, no matter how many days they give you in each email. But if you don't respond, they close the question, they ask it again. But if you continuously do not respond, they can close your application for non-responsive. It doesn't make sense to go through the whole process, pay your $250 and then get closed. So if you make sure you respond to the RFIs as quickly as possible. Make sure you submit the requested documents, accurate documents. So if somebody's asking for a lease, make sure it's the lease for your office. If it's a mortgage statement, make sure it's the mortgage statement where the business is being transacted. So accurate documents must be submitted. If you need more time or more clarification, make sure you contact your certification officer. There's a 744-4900 telephone number to contact, but most officers do send you their email address so that you can contact them directly. So after approval, you should keep the copy of your approval letter for future bid opportunities and information regarding your NAICS codes and your renewal date. You will be surprised how many people get the approval letter and then they can't find it when it's time to bid. You have to have a copy of your approval letter if somebody selects you to be a sub, because they're going to have to prove that you are certified. So always either keep that email or keep a hard copy of your letter somewhere where you can put your hands on it. It's difficult when you have to go back to the office, go back to the Department of Procurement Services to ask for your letter. So we do ask that business owners keep up with their approval letter. All vendors are required to submit an annual no change affidavit. Your approval letter will give you the no change affidavit date. So in the letter, it will tell you when you have to do your next NCA. It's annually. So if you got approved on May 1st, 2021, your no change affidavit is due May 1st, 2022, May 1st, 2023. So you have to keep up with the no change affidavit. They can close your certification if you do not submit the no change affidavit. The no change affidavit is a very short affidavit. It's basically just asking, has anything changed in your company? Has the ownership changed? Has your address changed? And you usually do have to give gross receipts, but you don't have to submit the tax returns. You just submit the dollar amount for your gross receipts. You must notify the Department of Procurement Services regarding any changes to the company within 10 business days of the change. So that goes back to if you move, they need your new address. If you have a new phone number, they need the new phone number. And more importantly, if the ownership changes, that you need to report that to the department as soon as possible. And that can also be done in the chicago.mwdbe.com. It's called a change request, and you submit that, letting them know that there was a change to your company. An expansion of NAICS codes can be done. It's called an expansion request, which it also can be done online in the same software. You submit the written expansion request, and that was what you would select in the application tree. And then you have to submit all of the information to prove the new NAICS codes. So if you were certified as a painter, but you wanted to add drywall. So drywall is a totally new NAICS code. You would have to prove that you have drywall. If you bought the drywall, submit the receipts. If you've been doing drywall and you have a contract, submit the contracts. So you have to prove that you can work and do drywall. You can do painting, you're already certified in painting, but now you want to add drywall. So you would do an expansion request to get more codes. If you are denied, you do not get your $250 back. You can submit a written appeal, and that is what it's called. You would have to contact your certification officer and let them know as soon as possible that you're going to submit an appeal. The appeal must address any of the issues listed in the denial letter. So if you're an architect, but you didn't have a license, you were dependent on somebody else for their license, that person, and that's a bad example because you can have someone work with you who has a architecture license. If you're the 51% owner, but you could not prove that you had the knowledge to run the business, it can become a denial. So if you're a construction company who never took a construction class, has never had to supervise construction, and you're the 51% owner, that could possibly come back as a denial. You would have to appeal it and say, something to the effect of why you think you should have these construction codes and why you can control and manage a construction company. So that would be up to you to be able to prove it. All appeals go to the City of Chicago Department of Law. The process can take up 90 days or more because Department of Law is getting appeals from Department of Procurement Services. Department of Law is getting legal things from every city department. So the process can be long for an appeal. If you are denied, you must wait 1 year to reapply. So if you get denied this year, it doesn't mean that you can never be certified. You would just have to wait 1 year and then submit another application, and yes, pay the $250. So I'm at the end and I am ready to take any questions that you may have. Am I back to Irma to see the questions?
Yeah, I don't see any in the chats. However, if you want to pose a question, feel free to raise your hand in the options listed below. But as you were going through your presentation, I thought of a few things. For example, how long before an expiration takes place should a vendor submit? Because a lot of times working with the state, they don't understand that because you submitted the application before the expiration does not mean you're going to be current by the time your date of expiration takes place. So let's say my certification expires today. In the state system, by midnight, you're out of the system. You're no longer considered a certified vendor. How long
No,
in advance?
The city doesn't kick you out if you so on your approval letter, you'll have a date of when you need to submit a no change affidavit or a recert. We ask that you submit your paperwork 60 days before the expiration date. So in the letter, it'll tell you, okay, your certification expires May 1st, but they want you to submit the no change 60 days before that. So what's that? March?
So what I was referring to is for example, the BEP doesn't kick you out. However, for subcontracting and contracting opportunities, you are not considered certified if you're not current. You don't get a buffer or a permit in between it.
No, the city wouldn't. You could stay on contracts. You pretty much could still bid, but so say someone submitted your letter as a subcontractor and you were supposed to submit a no change affidavit January 1st and you didn't. Once it gets to the Department of Procurement Services, they're going to contact you and they're going to tell you, hey, your no change affidavit was due January 1st. You need to get that done ASAP. They're not going to kick you off of anything. Reminders do go out. If anything is due, you do get a reminder from the system that says, hey, your no change affidavit is due, or hey, your recert is due. But it wouldn't stop you from being on a contract.
Still, it would be a good practice, as you said, to submit at least at the 60-day mark, or starting at
Definitely.
the 60-day mark, to ensure that
Definitely.
there are no lapses. We have a question from Shirley. Shirley, let me see if I could unmute you. Go ahead, Shirley.
Hi, thank you. I just have a quick question. My business, we provide training and speakers to organizations. Are those type of opportunities available through the city, or do they ever bring in outside trainers? That it makes sense for me to go through this process?
So it depends on what you're training on. What do you train on?
So it's there's leadership training, a lot of soft skills training, conflict resolution, leadership, communications. So there are other people who provide those trainings. So we are technically a speakers bureau.
Okay.
But yeah, if that makes sense.
So there is what we have is called a buying. The city of Chicago has what's called a buying plan, and I 100% recommend that you go on the Department of Procurement Services website, look at the buying plan, because it has over 13 agencies in it and what they're going to purchase for the next 12 months. And they put up a new one every 3 months that goes out further. And it tells you what they're going to buy. Now, have I seen the city of Chicago hire trainers? For what you just discussed, it would be the Department of Human Services or HR that might hire people to do that. They already have people on staff to do that. But if they were looking, I would have you check the buying plan to see, because the buying plan is broken down by every city department, and every city department gets to decide what they want to purchase. Now, what I would say for you is, if you got certified, you could use it with the agency like Chicago Public Schools, because I do believe Chicago Public Schools hires for training like that. Or you could contact a principal and say, hey, I want to come do leadership training for your teachers, or I could do leadership training for your parents. I'm just using leadership because that's the one thing you said, but whatever other training you do, you can use that. I do know we have certified people who do CPR training, health type trainings, because some places you have to keep license, well, not license, but I think you have to have a certificate to do CPR training.
Yes.
So, sometimes they do have people from the outside come in to do CPR training. So yeah, you can use it for the city, but you could also use it for the county. The county's hospital system is way bigger. And so you can use those types of trainings with the county, or you can use it with CPS.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Look,
Shirley,
I need to get on your list. I need to get on your list as a speaker.
Yes, you do.
Shirley, I added the buying plan that Victoria mentioned, and also to your point, I don't know if the city, I'm not very familiar with the city's procurement process. Victoria, is there a procurement bulletin where she could register as a vendor, identify her commodity codes, and get those notifications?
The city calls it a DPS alert, and it goes out every Monday to tell you the actual contracts that are on the street and that are available to be bid on. So you can also go to the City of Chicago website. It's on the first page of the website. It says DPS alerts, and all you do is go in and put your name and your email address, and they'll send that to you every Monday so that you can see what bids are available. Now, the buying plan, I recommend, because it gives you, like, you might see something that's not coming out until January of 2023, but it
Mhm.
gives you the opportunity to prepare for it.
Right.
So you will know about it. I think in another class that I'm teaching for Irma, I'm going to talk about how to have the upper hand when it
Okay.
comes to bidding.
Victoria, I
Yeah.
added the DPS alerts link in the chat as well for our
Okay.
callers today. And then another thing I wanted to bring up, certification may not only be utilized for the city of Chicago. There are many sister and assist agencies that accept and recognize the certifications. So I'm thinking that, like, for what you do, Shirley, your educational institutions, you know, whether they be higher education, elementary education. I know Chicago Public Schools actively looks to engage and increase their supplier diversity spend working with certified vendors. So it's not enough for me to come to an agency and say I'm a woman-owned business. They want that certification because only then will they be credited for that spend. So as Victoria mentioned, the certification works to help both the city and the whatever government entity stay in compliance with whatever mandates they have for diversity spend. But this is where that certification is key, because
Right.
you know, oftentimes with
Irma,
that certification.
can you talk about what the other classes? I know I'm teaching DBE and ACDBE, but what are the other two classes?
Let me bring them up for you.
I think it's the procurement process, and then now that you have your certification, what do I do with it?
Yes.
How to utilize the certification. And in those classes, I talk about what to do with it, who to contact. Definitely don't just stay with the city. Don't just, you know, when you're looking for contracts, you have to think outside the box. Don't just think about the city, the county, the state. And now I'm giving some of my speech for the next workshop, but you can think about hospitals, you
Mhm.
can think about universities, you can think about colleges. These are all places that you should be looking for contracts, but you also have to learn their process.
Right.
Victoria, the other thing I wanted to highlight is leveraging your certification. If and when you get certified with the city of Chicago, you're almost automatically recognized by the state of Illinois. So if you take that certification, you could fast track your way into the state of Illinois BEP certification. And what they're going to ask you is for that letter that Victoria mentioned. That letter is extremely important. That's your ticket to getting your subcontracting opportunities and showing that you're certified. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's going to confirm and determine that you are still current and certified with the city, but that's your proof. You need to keep that handy at all times. Laminate it, whatever it is you got to do, but make sure you keep that letter secure. And then, so you need that proof of certification and proof of income or gross revenues, and that's not even proof. It's a signed and notarized affidavit that you're saying, you know, this is what I made for an annual gross sales for last year. Have it signed, notarized, and within 7 days is the process for the state of Illinois to certify you. But then again, going back to assist agencies and other, you got the casinos. There, any casino in the state of Illinois is accepting City of Chicago certification, water reclamation, Chicago Public Schools, CHA, McPeer, you name it. That the opportunities are almost endless. So it's just a matter of you getting the certification and then coming back to our workshop that Victoria is going to present, because we're hopefully by then you've submitted your application, and now you're going to come back and say, well, now I'm getting certified, or I am certified, now what? And that's why you need to tune in next time with Victoria.
Right. And even if you haven't done the application, because I'm gonna tell you, it could be a long process when you see all the documents that you have to pull together. But you still could do the class even if you're not certified yet, because I'm going to talk about, well, now that I'm certified, how do I use it? How do I talk to people about it? So you don't have to have submitted the application to do the workshop. Trust me. And I guess I wanted to say this too, is that Irma said, I did just recently retire from the city in January. I've been doing certification. I have been doing certification for the past 11 years. And I did marketing for the certification program. And then I was an actual certification officer doing audits. So I know what they're looking for. I know what they see every day. And now as AVH consultant, I want to help small businesses with their certification or just with their marketing, or if they're just getting started, making sure you know where to go to get your business license, make sure you have a business license. Um, so those are the types of things that I'm getting into as AVH consultant. And I don't mind coming out to speak to small groups or larger groups, but I even want to start with talking about entrepreneurship with younger people, because everybody's not meant to be at a 4-year college. They might have a skill that they can start their own business. So this is something that you have to start looking at early if you want to start a business. Hey, it's so many people young people who are starting their own businesses today, and they need to know how to do it.
Does anyone else have any other questions? The one other point that I wanted to make that you brought up was your appeals. That is oftentimes why it's so important to submit as accurate and complete an application as possible. Number one, you want to be as transparent as possible with the information that you're submitting to avoid any delays in the review process. I recently had a young man that came to me. He wanted to open his own business. One of the things that I always ask, two of my questions aside from the regular eligibility questions is, do you have affiliates or are you affiliated with someone else? Or in other words, do you have ownership in another company, or does anyone else outside of you have ownership in your company? He insisted, no, never, nothing. Well, he submits his application. Lo and behold, they discover that he did indeed purchase his grandfather's business. He calls me upset because how did they know this if he didn't declare it? And I said, I don't know how they do it, but because I don't know, I was never an analyst, but that is part of the discovery and the documentation that you're submitting. At some point, you didn't say it, but your financials or your records.
Yes, I was just going to
Something.
say, if he purchased a business from and it was a real purchase, it's in his tax returns. You have to put that in your tax returns, that you paid somebody $50,000 for a company, or somebody paid you $50,000 for something. That's a red flag if they see a big purchase in your tax returns. Or if the name of your company is, or if your company is 20 years old, but you've only owned it for one, they're going to want to know, well, who had it for 20 years before you? Yeah, that's why that's why I stress that the officers are looking at everything. They look at all the documents. I don't want anybody to ever think that they're just skimming it. It's not. They are reading it.
Well, I'm still receiving calls from this gentleman because then he was upset that they then asked him for copies of his stock certificates. He says, I'm the only owner. I don't have to have them. I'm like, no, you do, because you signed up to structure your business as an incorporated business. Those are the requirements, whether you're keeping them for yourself or not, but for certification purposes. And now more and more, for when you want to access a lending institution, access to capital, grants,
Yep.
federal funding, believe it or not, more and more.
Even more for him, that you would have to explain that if he bought the company from his father or grandfather, they want to make sure that that person doesn't own more stock than him. Like, he can say, oh, well, they don't have any ownership. Well, you got to be able to prove that. Did you buy it outright and they went away? Or do they still have 51% and you only own 49%? You have to be able to prove that.
Good. I think that's all. And everybody, I added the link to our upcoming event on the 16th. This is a great switch up to the normal networking experience where we're asking certified MBEs to come and exhibit. whereas purchasers and buyers will come and visit your table. So it's a great opportunity for you to network, even if you don't, if you're not currently certified. It's a great way for you to get to know other businesses like yourself, ways of partnering, and the
I'll
ways
be
of
there.
purchasing. Yes, we come out and meet Victoria, if nothing else. So yeah, another aspect of what we're doing, and for all our businesses, we always push the importance of networking. So, oftentimes we get caught up in our little silos, we get too busy, but you could potentially be missing out on a lot of opportunities that may not come in your inbox, or you don't want to wait for it to come to you as way of, word of mouth. You want to be in the know at all times, be current, be informed, and have fun. A lot of this stuff is fun. I will never lie and say certification is fun, but the returns are very much worth it if you know how to work it. It is an undertaking, and I ask you to look out for our next event. It should have been in the list of events that you received to register with this one. So one of the things that Victoria will be covering in some of our next workshops is certification now what? And as she stated, don't wait to get certified to tune in, as a lot of the information that she has is very important and impactful, and will ensure that you will have some continued success in your new or already existing company or business. If no one else has any questions, we'd like to close this out. Victoria, do you have any last words or advice?
No, just like I said, I will be at your event on the 16th, and I'll just be there to network. So I look forward to seeing anybody who shows up.
Yes, come out and say hi to Victoria and me. We'd love to meet you. We'd like to shake hands and personally wish you a continued success. And if nothing else, we'd like to say good night, be safe, have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You
You
too.
too.